It's called the decision maker and the decision evaluator. And you want to separate those two roles. And the way you do it is by never making a decision. Let your team make all the decisions, and they're all pushing forward. And all you're doing is saying, whoa, every once in a while.
Hey guys, it's Matt Haycox here, and today I have definitely got with me a first for our podcast. I have got the former captain of a nuclear submarine, David Marquet. David's kindly joining us all the way from Florida during lockdown now. And having been the former captain of a submarine, David created a business called Intent-Based Leadership. He's also an internationally recognized speaker. He's written an Amazon bestseller, which is called Turn the Ship Around, which is a true story of turning followers into leaders. And this was a book that Fortune magazine called the best how-to manual anywhere for managers on delegating, training, and driving flawless execution. And David's also got a second book out, which is called Leadership is Language, which I will let him tell you about when we get going on to this. So, guys watching or listening to this on at home, on the podcast, on YouTube, on iTunes, etc., we are filming this live onto YouTube and Facebook. So we will include a bit of audience interaction where possible. Make sure everyone gets best value. So everyone watching it in all your different ways, forgive me, but I hope I give you all the best way to listen to what David's got to say. So, David, thanks a lot for joining us, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me on your show, Matt, and welcome everyone who's joining us from wherever you are locked down.
How can I say no to having a former submarine captain on? That is definitely a once in a lifetime opportunity.
We're naturally, this idea of being locked into a small place with a bunch of other people really doesn't upset us all that much.
Tell me, I hadn't actually thought about this before we started recording, but now I've said it, I'm going to have to ask you. I mean, do you like the submarine movies? Like what's the one with Alec Baldwin and Sean Connery and Hunt for Red
October? It's funny you asked me that. I just finished filming a piece with Business Insider where I look at about 8 of these submarine clips, and I comment on the realism of the movie. And it's over at the Pentagon now to get released for security review. But I'll send you a link when it comes out. Hopefully it'll be about a month or two.
Love to. And just as a generalization, I mean, how realistic are these things ever?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you're a doctor watching some of these doctor shows, you'd be like cringing. So in general, the physics and the technology isn't quite right. But a lot of times the feeling of what it's like Hunt for Red October was really good at capturing the feeling. Das Boot, really good at capturing the feeling. And now we got this new series, the UK series called How to Be a Submarine Commander. And it's just out on Amazon Prime. I see it. And the problem is, again, it's perpetuating this persona as a submarine commander, as a guy who gives a bunch of orders. And I found that it's really much more powerful if you not to be like that. And this is the big explosion that happened in my head when I went to be a submarine commander.
Well, look, let's talk a bit of chronology. Obviously, I gave an introduction to yourself, but just I guess we don't need to go too deep into the past unless you think it's particularly relevant. But I guess tell us a little bit about life and the submarines, and then leaving that to starting in business, and I guess really at what point you realised that the skill set you've been learning as a submarine commander was something that was kind of completely parallel to business. And what took you over the fence?
Yeah. So my story in a nutshell, the one I tell and Turn the Ship Around, is I came up through a program where it's all about telling people what to do, giving orders, being clear and concise, and just your typical picture of what you think submarine commander would look like. And at the very last minute, after I was selected and spent 12 months training to go to one ship, I went to a different ship, a different kind of ship. And that idea that I give orders didn't work. And in the past, like if you give an order and it's a bad order, you say, oh, I got to give better orders. That's my job as a leader. But since I couldn't learn the whole complexity of a submarine, I said, what if I try and let's create a system where I actually don't have to give any orders. And I made a deal with my team. my crew, I'm never going to tell you guys what to do. I'll never issue a command as the commanding officer. And it worked unbelievably brilliantly. And it wasn't a change program like you would normally think. We just changed our language in a bunch of different ways. And so, for example, instead of the officer saying, well, I'd like permission to do this, and then I say, okay, do that. I'd like permission to submerge the ship. Submerge the ship. Submerge the ship, aye, sir. I just said, just tell me what you intend to do. And if you say that, you already have permission. I grant you permission ahead of time if you use that word. So they would say, Captain, I intend to submerge the ship. This is why, and this is why it's the right thing to do, and this is why how we're doing it safe. And then I would say, very well, or okay, and then they would do it. And so now everyone is coming to me. Rather than me trying to make stuff happen and then check on people, they're all leaning into me. You lean up. This is the problem. We all think, oh, I lean into my team. I direct, and they report, and I even call them my direct reports. So the whole structure of language in business is about coercing people to do stuff that you want them to do, which suppresses their thinking and their ability to get stuff out on the table. And then we say, oh, well, do that better, and people will somehow think, and it just doesn't work. We need to fundamentally change the language, and we ran a whole bunch of experiments. We saw the power of language. Another example is we had all these theys on the submarine, they by department, they by hierarchy. I see this in business all the time. Well, they didn't order it, they didn't talk to the client, they did blah, blah, blah. And so you just say, you have to use the word we. Well, we didn't order and then you're like, eh. And pretty soon it feels like we, but the action comes first. We act our way, we use language to act our way to new thinking. We act empowered, we use language of empowerment, and then we become and feel empowered. Not all these speeches that you give about empowerment or that you hear, it's just a waste of time. So stop doing that. Just act your way to new thinking. And this was the story. And so now we help companies who are trying to do this, and that's what this leadership, this new book, Leadership of Language, is all about. It's what is the language? Here's the thing I want everyone to think about. Why do you use the words you do, and why do you phrase things the way you phrase them? Is it you deliberately chose to do it that way, or are you just repeating words that you heard other people say or that you just grew up with? Because if that's all we're doing, then our language is industrial age language, and we never change it.
And tell me, and not that I'm any expert in the slightest on military language and military strategy, but I mean, everything you're saying sounds like the complete opposite of what you would expect in the army stereotype. In any kind of military thing, it's all do this, do that. Yes sir, no sir. I mean, how?
You're right. You're exactly right. So I flipped everything, and I talk about giving control, not taking control. I talk about things like, here's some very important words. I don't know. Those are so important for leaders to be able to say. And we say, oh, leaders have to know the answer. And then we get a certain outcome. And then we say, well, we have to act in a slightly different way. But fundamentally, if we're anchored to always knowing the answer, then the outcome's never going to really change. We have to celebrate what we don't know as an individual and as a team, because that's what sparks our curiosity. That's what creates learning organizations. As long as you're anchored in, well, I got to know I got to pretend to know everything, and everyone else has got to pretend to know all we do is we have these BS conversations all day long. We're all pretending to know stuff we don't really know what's going on. So I say, I don't know. And on and on. But yeah, you're right. So it wasn't my training to be a submarine commander that I help people with now. It's what I learned, how limiting that training was. The training's okay. It'll take a team from 0 to 60, but you won't get the most out of human beings by telling them what to do. That is clear. The science is clear. Only when people have control over the actions and they can feel safe to say what they think, now you get a truly high performance team. And if you think a team operating at level 60 is as high as it goes, I used to think, I saw these teams are operating. let's just call it 60 out of 100. But I thought it was 100. I thought it was the end of the story. There's a door. You open that door, you go from 60 to 100. It changes everything.
And how did you find that your theories and your strategies were taken up by your peers? I mean, in terms of other people in your position who could implement it, or was it something that was shunned?
No, well, the first thing is we didn't really deliberately have a plan. For me, it was desperation because I was giving orders based on a different kind of submarine, which would have got us in trouble. So we were just trying to figure it out on board. And it wasn't a program that I could go talk to people about until afterwards when I wrote the book. So they knew like what happened with my ship. We went from the worst performing ship to the best performing ship. And we went from having the worst morale to the best morale. We went from only 1 in 10 sailors signing up to stay in the Navy to every single one. Now people said, oh, how did that happen? You must have given really good orders. And I would say to them sort of briefly, no, actually I stopped giving orders. It's the opposite of what you think. And they're like, huh? And it's just, they couldn't see it because it was so foreign to the way they were thinking about leadership. We like the idea that there's leaders and followers. Why? That's just made up. That there's white collar, blue collar, that there's thinkers and doers. That's all made up by humans in order to keep people in coercion, keep people complying with what they're supposed to do and not make it too hard for me to explain why I need you to do it. And these were kind of the light bulbs that kept hitting me over and over. Why do we run the meeting this way? Why am I keeping a list of what you need to do? It's crazy. We waste so much time managing humans. They need to be coordinated, but not controlled.
But tell me on that though, in terms of that, that specific language you just used. You said it's a fallacy that there are thinkers and there are doers. I mean, yeah. You have to agree that at some point, that a certain proportion of people are not thinkers. And I'm not being disrespectful to them. They just are doers. I mean, how would you anticipate managing them any differently?
Yeah, so for me, it's always a bell curve. So if I would say like, here's humanity. And there's people who like to think and people who like to do. People just like to be told what to do. So it's always, there are some people who really are uncomfortable. But the problem is it's what we do to them that pushes more people into the doing than we need to. And if we create an environment where it's okay to think, what we saw was those people who before you would say, yeah, that's just to do. He just wants to be told what to do. They're that way because of the way we treat them, not because of the way they're fired. Anyone who's ever had a 2-year-old knows humans are not do what we're told kind of people. And then we have an education program that's got 12 years to beat all that out of you, so that you go to work to be a nice, compliant member of society, and you do what you're told, and you sit in your desk, and you have the right answer, and you raise your hand when you're called on to ask permission to go to the bathroom.
And how much? I mean, I guess obviously in your situation on the submarines, many decisions, were very much life and death. I mean, how much latitude in the thinking are people given, or is it that you allow people to think, but they then still run it past you?
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's what the idea of intent is. I still get to veto it.
Okay.
So another way to think about it is, in most organizations, the person at the top, think the CEO, their MD, they've got a gas pedal to say, go, 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 launch the product, develop this new thing, talk to the clients, give it discount, pivot into something else. And then they have a brake pedal. No, hold on a second. And what I tried to picture was, I want my team to have the gas pedal and the brake pedal if they need it. All I want is a brake pedal. Because as soon as I start saying, look, we should do this, we should, and you can go through all these corporate scandals all the time and you can see how they get misinterpreted. We need to build a diesel engine that has this much performance and these sort of emissions levels. Well, so I'm coercing the team into doing that. It requires cheating, but the team is coerced into doing it, and that's the power of leadership. So at the top, all you want is a brake pedal, and here's why. Once you are part of the decision, once you say we should do this, you become contaminated. Your brain then attaches. It's like a virus. You attach ego to the decision, and then it becomes harder for you to actually see the decision in a dispassionate. See, it's not, you know what, we should stop selling, stop renting DVDs. That doesn't make sense anymore. We're going to stop doing print film. Doesn't make sense anymore because you're attached to the decision. So what you want to do is it's called the decision maker and the decision evaluator. And you want to separate those two roles. And the way you do it is by never making a decision. Let your team make all the decisions, and they're all pushing forward. And all you're doing is saying, whoa, every once in a while. And that becomes an organization where there's this bias for action. People have ownership and their commitment, and they're making stuff happen all the time. That's the difference.
Okay. Interesting. I like it. And I think for me, what's really interesting is the kind of the complete 180 of philosophy from someone with your background. I mean in I guess in business, in data, in normal day-to-day business, there's always, let's say, revolutionary business thinkers or new management styles, but you never think it's too crazy because I guess nothing can go too badly wrong with these people, and they get like a testing ground. But to hear these strategies, coming from someone like I said, literally dealing with life and death, and you're dealing with a military that is so so historically black and white and order takers and order doers. It's very, very interesting to hear.
Yeah, that's why it works. I mean, we work with clients all over the world. We were working with a company in France, and they make bottled water. And yeah, if you have impurities, you could hurt people. But I was at a meeting with the senior executives, and some of them were like, "Oh, I don't know, blah blah blah." And the guy stands up and says, "Look, this guy did on nuclear. All we do is water." It's like, we can do this. But our fears hold us back. Our fears always hold us back. And the cool thing is, it's inside us. It's not gravity. It's not the laws of physics. It's not a piece of technology. It's simply our own fears and programming, which hold us back from being just really amazing leaders and amazing people, which help the people around us.
Well, listen, I want to talk a little bit about crisis management, and for anyone listening to this after the date that we filmed it, just to kind of contextualize this, we're recording this on the 4th of May, so we're kind of 5 or 6 weeks into lockdown, and we're certainly a couple of months into Corona, COVID, call it what you want, and we're still, well, I'm still hearing from many business owners on a weekly basis of their problems, their crises, their lack of cash flow, etc. And we're undoubtedly in what is probably the worst event that 90% plus of businesses, unless they're selling groceries and toilet roll, it's probably the worst economic circumstances any business owner has ever had to feel. But obviously, your crises are slightly different. From should you or should you not launch the missile? I guess is this decision going to kill other people, kill my team? I mean,
yeah.
What kind of parallels can you give people as advice today, and what kind of strategies for crisis management have you got, both as a manager and also as someone, someone taking orders, if you like, from someone who could effectively be making them walk to a certain death? Yeah.
So the characteristic that you want in your organization we describe as distributed decision making, but unity of effort. So people all through the organization can make decisions. They don't have to be channeled up to the person at the top and then come back down. The problem is people say, okay, well, that's going to run in tension with getting everyone on the same page. I can order people to march in lockstep, so I have unity of effort, but I don't have distributed decision making, or I'll let people walk across the bridge any way they want, so I have distributed decision making, but not unity of effort. Well, it turns out you're going to have both. And in crises, people say, oh, now this is the time to take back command and control. The difference between a team which can act independently in small groups, individually, making decisions how to deal with something, versus one that has to ask permission all the time and get someone else to make the decision, is even greater in times of crisis. So our clients, people who we've worked with, they built up this muscle where people can make decisions. They make decisions during the normal time. Business is all about solving problems. And I got this client here and they're this way. I got a client over there and then this way. I got a video course, but doesn't really, can we do it in some other way? So medical groups adapting to using the PPE, changing the way to do business. If we have to wait for someone sitting in headquarters to tell us how to rearrange the entry room and then it doesn't work. Nonprofits, restaurants, whatever it happens to be, the more you can get thinking and decision-making happening way at the edge of the organization, then the faster your organization is going to adapt to what's going on. And since we live in a global world, if you're in Northern Italy, maybe adapting means one thing, but if you're living in Florida or someplace that's not hit as bad, maybe adapting means something different. So the fact that some giant head person at the top is going to make all these decisions just holds you back. So this is the number one myth, is that in crises, we want to go back. The reason people go back is because they haven't trained their team. The team is not a thinking team. In general, they have to rely on someone telling them what to do. So in a crisis, it just exposes all the cracks, and it's even worse. Teams that have built up independent thinking, decision-making people throughout the organization thrive in this time.
And are you specifically advising any people right now during the COVID situation?
Yeah, well, we have clients that we're engaged with now, and then we have previous clients. So, for example, one of the biggest meat producers in the United States, and what they're doing to take care of their people, and they're having to change the way the assembly line. This is not work you can do from home. You got to go to the plant. And so the way they're protecting their people, setting up barricades between people, plexiglass, so I can see the person, but that if they sneeze, it won't come over to me, wearing masks and that kind of thing. Medical organizations, nonprofit that we're working with, and on and on and on. A big food producer headquartered in Switzerland. But basically it's the same. It's exactly the same story. It's the teams that have built the muscle memory for people to make decisions are still making decisions, and they're still doing well. We got one client, they say, we don't pay the most, but we're the number one in our industry for this kind of talent that we're looking for. We're the go-to company because people know when they come here, they can make decisions. And so we've doubled in the last year, we've doubled our staff. And this doesn't happen. If you're just going to say, well, people are going to come to me because I'm going to pay them more, you're competing with Facebook and Google, you're probably going to lose.
And tell me, obviously, I mean, we've talked in the context of your books and your theories of, you know, how to be a better leader, how to be a better manager. But I mean, a lot of my audience as well are, you know, let's say currently employees in small businesses, or you know, thinking about, you know, starting a business on their own. What kind of advice could you translate this to, of almost like how to be led better? You know, how to be a better follower.
Yeah, so it's all about safety, and when as a leader, I got a CEO calls me and says, "Hey, my people don't speak up in meetings," and I'm like, "Well, what's going on?" "Well, I order them to speak up." I'm like, "Well, I think like my hypothesis is there's some way that you're running the meeting that's making it hard for people to speak up." No, I order them to." Well, even that language gives me a clue. That's the way this person is thinking about human beings. It's all about safety. We need to make it safe for people to speak up, but it also goes the other way around. If you want to earn voice with your boss, you need to make it safe for them to listen to you. And it comes by not challenging their authority. Now, I'm an expert in this because I did this wrong for a long time. I would go to my boss and say, "Hey, I think that was a dumbass decision you just made, or I think we can do, even if you don't say that, I think we can do it better. And what they're thinking is, oh, you think more better than me. So now you earn the right to be heard before you influence the decision. So the first is, hey, this is your decision. And you make sure that they know that you understand it's their decision and you respect their authority to make the decision. Don't challenge them. Hey, it's your call. Whatever you decide, I'm going to support you 100%. Would you like to know how we see it on the team? Not how we think you should do it. That's too many steps up the ladder. It's just about description. What do we see? What are the factors? Hey, would you like to know what we see the factors are here? Would you like to come down and look at the code? Would you like to come down and look at the product? Would you like, just how do you see it? And they'll say, okay, sure. It's very safe. You're not challenging them. And then you earn the right, hey, would you like to know what we think is going on? Well, would you like to know what we would do if you weren't here? Would you? And again, most fundamental choice is, would you like to know? Yes, no. They can say no. If they say no 10 times, get a new job because it's never going to change. But generally speaking, if you're doing it right, then you earn the right to be heard. Then you earn the right to influence the decision.
Cool. I like it. Well, listen, it's been great to have you here, David. And obviously, I'm looking forward to getting your books myself, and certainly, learning more and hearing more about your theories. But now's your chance to kind of tell everyone where we can find you. Where should people be following you on social? Where can they buy your books?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks again for having me on your show, man. It's L, like you see below, L David Marquet, no spaces. Instagram, Twitter, the handle's the same. LinkedIn, say hi on LinkedIn. And our program's called Intent-Based Leadership. So the website, intentbasedleadership.com. You can check out on LinkedIn, the Intent-Based Leadership Institute. And the first book is Turn the Ship Around. Then Leadership is Language. Let me know what you try.
We can get those books on. We can get those on Amazon or anywhere we normally buy our books from.
Yeah. Any normal bookseller will have both those books.
Cool. Well, listen, thanks again, David. It's been great, and I hope we can see you again in the future.